Hi folks, we're Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the continued and very coordinated and centrally scripted media framing of the activist judges in the US putting injunctions on the Trump administration's policies and implementation of policies. Now, the memorandums, clearly gone out, and whether it's AAP, Reuters, whether it's the BBC in Britain or MSNBC in the United States, or CBC in Canada, ABC in Australia, it doesn't matter. They're all sticking more or less to the same script with some very minor adjustments, but it's all scripted and organised, and the narrative is constructed in the same way. Now, the framing of the narrative is that anything the Trump administration does is illegitimate, and it is the behaviour of a fascist regime, and it's the sort of thing that Hitler does or would do or is doing, and therefore everyone has an obligation to fight back. We are the resistance. We are we're not judges in a court of law, or interpreting the law. We're placard wavers on the street screaming obscenities, but we wear black robes, and we have a government salary to fall back on. So the framing is very consistent, as I said, and just looking at the framing here, every judge that blocks or puts an injunction, temporary or otherwise, on the Trump administration is depicted and portrayed as being 100% justified. Nothing the Trump administration wants to do or is trying to do or is implementing is justified in any way. Nothing is justified. Everything they do is the act of a fascist regime. Now, when the Biden administration brings in millions upon millions of illegal aliens from the literate peasants from the third world, and then flies them around in the middle of the night, using all sorts of underhanded methods, is there anything wrong with it? No, nothing wrong with that at all. But if President Trump tries to remove those same people brought in illegally, fascism, Hitler, Nazi, swastika. And so the disingenuous framing, of course, is obvious. But there are people around, and many of them, by the way, especially in the NGOs and in any of the activist groupings. And if you go onto some of the NGO websites, they are parroting again these same phrases, the same narrative, that if Trump does it, it's the act of a fascist. If the Biden administration does something a great deal worse, breaks more laws, then no, that's okay. No, there's nothing. So it's okay when we do it, type of attitude. But so the way the narrative is framed, that anything that obstructs or hinders in any way with the Trump administration is a great act of, it's stunning and brave. It's an act of heroism. It's like, wow, what a strong woman judge is standing up against fact. She's just not putting an injunction on something illegally without regard to the law. She's standing up to Hitler. Hitler is being and so on it goes. So no matter the issue, Trump is 100% in the wrong, and these activist judges are 100% in the right. There's no nuance here, by the way. There's no Trump was elected as the president. He is the commander in chief, and the judges blatantly and brazenly ignored the law and the Constitution. No, that's not how it's looked at. The judges made a moral determination based on relative social power and sort of vague ideological, sort of aspirational things, and thus the judge is in the right, whereas the elected political representative of the United States people, they're just Nazis. So the judges are stopping Hitler after all. So now the arguments that they use here as well, they start off by quoting some radical activist who they never claim, and they never point out that a person's a radical activist. They always put them up as an independent, making a sagacious observation, which of course they're anything but. So Trump's trying to steal democracy. All right, then fine. Well, that's a concerning thing to say. How is the elected president of the United States trying to steal democracy? Exactly how? Well, you must be Hitler if you're asking me. No. How is he trying to steal democracy? Tell me. Oh, yeah, and so it's just a line to throw out there. It's like steal democracy, fuck, Hitler trying to steal democracy. So it's one that sort of can galvanise the low IQ base, perhaps, and give people a nice line to, why are we going out on the street today to attack ICE agents? Why are we going? Because Trump's trying to steal democracy and we're fighting because we're the brave ones fighting back against evil. Yeah, we're. I'm sure it's just a firing up sort of argument that they use. Now, there's only assertions. I mean, I'm looking at one article now. There's only assertions in it. There's no facts. There's not a single fact in this. It is all assertion. So they'll make an assertion, well, Trump's trying to steal democracy. Then they'll get a quote from an activist. Again, they don't declare or don't state that this person is a radical Trump-hating activist. They don't state that. They make out they're an independent. So Trump's trying to steal democracy. And we spoke to, Billy Bob from, and they often don't even say the NGO they're associated with. Billy Bob, who's an expert on US democracy, he said, yeah, Trump's definitely Hitler. And fascist. I'm that. Did you know that in the White House, they've taken out all the furniture and they've replaced it with swastikas? Swastikas. That's one more evidence you need. Is it true? Who gives a fuck? We're just firing up the crowd here. Now Trump's the administration of President Trump wants to deploy troops and ICE agents to cities where the violence and the rioting and the attacking of agents is off the charts. Nowhere was that mentioned or is mentioned in any of these articles. There have been 1,000 attacks against ICE agents. That's not mentioned. There's no mention of it at all. So if you read the article, you'd assume that for fascist reasons alone, or something nefarious is the implication here, that the president is just sending troops in for no reason. No reason. The only reason can be fascism. Is there any mention in the article of Antifa riots, the ICE agents being attacked, the rioting in the streets, and so no mention of that at all. To what extent it ever is mentioned, it's presented as a response to the deployment of troops in the region. So they try and flip it to say, well, Trump deploys troops into this or that, Portland or wherever it might be, and only then did the Antifa people come out. And they don't refer to them as Antifa. They make out it's some sort of grassroots response. The people came out in response to the fascism that was being enforced upon them, when in fact it's quite the reverse. If the city was quiet and peaceful and the ICE agents could do their job without being mobbed and hindered and attacked, then there wouldn't be any of this. But that's not mentioned. So there's the cause of it is, the only reason the president's doing this is because, no, that's not mentioned. Instead, it's implied that these are just the acts of a fascist trying to steal democracy, which is blatantly and brazenly untrue. But that's how it's framed. Now, there's also deep concern about how these activist judges can stop or hinder or in some way delay the Trump administration's policies or the implementation of the policies. And this is described and presented as a universal good thing. It is an unalloyed 100% good thing that we can stop fascism. But whereas at the district court level, the activists have many what they would perceive as successes, hindering Trump and so on. When it gets to the appeal courts, they don't have such a success rate. There's maybe, their success rate is sort of 80-90% at the lower courts, around 50% in the appeal courts, which is still a good innings. But their success rate is about 10% in the Supreme Court. This outrages them. If Trump hadn't stacked the Supreme Court with radical fascists, but hey, stop. Well, what if Biden had put in, radical activists? No, that's okay. That's all right. No, that's allowed. So this idea of dismembering the American judicial system and ensuring that the law and the application of the law is only ideological and is not fact or based on the Constitution at all. That this is an absolute rabid determination they have in any legal situation or legal decision that does not is not made along ideological lines is an illegitimate decision. And thus the Supreme Court that rules on the basis of the Constitution and so on is making decisions based on legal scholars making decisions based on the law and the Constitution. This is not legitimate as far as they're concerned. If you don't have ideological social power type law, then it's just not legitimate, and that's it. Nothing more to talk about. So there's a lot of wailing and boo-hooing and hand-wringing about the Supreme Court because they know that 9 out of 10 cases, the activists know that they're going to lose in the Supreme Court. So they suggest the Supreme Court has, the open docket thing where the Trump administration can go to the Supreme Court on an emergency basis and can get a pretty quick hearing, often within days. And this is considered an outrage. Now, on the other side, when the activists can go to a district judge secretly and quietly in background, can get the whole thing organised so they can trigger pull it instantly and have a decision that they want using all sorts of activist back channels, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But any mechanism the Trump administration has to be able to circumvent their activism, that's an outrage. Our activism should be absolute and total, and indicating, or not indicating, clearly saying they want total control of the legal system. And during President Trump's first term, he appointed 3 judges to the court. And now, whether you want to say that they're all constitutional judges or they're legal scholars of the highest order, I would think 2 of them were, but in my view at least, this is considered to be, and if you look at the effort the Democrats made and the activists made at the time to prevent President Trump's appointments to the Supreme Court, then they already knew the stakes. Their plan to hijack the entire system was already in place. And President Trump's unexpected win in that election, and then his appointing those, death of Ginsburg and all that sort of thing, his ability to, or he was constitutionally required to appoint those judges, that fucked up their total hijacking of the legal. And for that, those judges appointed to the Supreme Court in President Trump's first term, the globalists would have achieved their goal of total takeover of the legal system. They have in Germany and Britain, for example, it's only in the United States that they were unable to. But they still lust and get all starry-eyed and gleamy-eyed about this idea that the law should be theirs to control and to manipulate for ideological reasons and ideological sort of positions. And they still see it as an absolute right. And anyone that disagrees with them is Hitler, as far as they're concerned. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.